Good morning, sir.
Good morning to all of you. We'll wait for a few minutes. Let the others join. Then we will start. We were on mistake in the last lecture. We started discussing about free consent. We discussed about what do you mean by consent. Then what do you mean by free consent? Then when the consent is not free. So aspects of that we discussed. We discussed about so many other things. But let us wait for a few minutes. Let the other join. Then we will continue. Chalo, let us start. So in the last lecture, we discussed about the chapter of free consent. We are on the verge of completion of it. The last part only remains with respect to mistake. Now, let us revise it a bit. We discussed first what is consent. When both the parties to the contract agree upon the same thing in the same sense, it is consent. Correct? Then what is free consent? So free consent was a definition which included five things. The consent is said to be free when it is not caused by coercion or undue influence or fraud or misrepresentation or mistake. Correct. Then we went on discussing what is coercion. Coercion was some threat given or some act done which is forbidden by Indian Penal Code, or the property is detained or threat is given that I will detain the property. Correct. Why all these things are done? All these things are done with a view to induce a person or to force a person to enter into a contract. Correct. So that was coercion. Then we discussed about the effects of coercion. What are the effects of coercion? Correct. Then we went on to discuss undue influence. Undue influence means a person is taking advantage of his position. One person is in a dominant position and is in a position to dominate the will of another and uses that position to obtain unfair advantage over the other. So I gave you the examples of master and servant, teacher and student, correct? Then the old person as the lady or the nurse taking care of that old person. So the person who is in dominant position makes use of that dominant position in unfair way and takes undue advantage of his position and forces or induces other party to enter into contract. Correct? The effect of this undue influence and coercion were same, that the agreement becomes voidable, contract becomes voidable. Agreement is a contract. It's correct. So the agreement is not void. Agreement becomes a contract voidable at the option of the party whose consent was caused by coercion or undue influence. So voidable means avoid. The party whose consent is caused by coercion or undue influence gets a choice either to avoid the contract or to continue with the contract. If they continue with the contract, it's okay. But if they want to avoid the contract or if they want to say no to the contract, they can do so by avoiding the contract. Then we discussed about fraud. Fraud means what? In simple words, it is cheating. So there are so many aspects of the fraud also. Correct? That also we discussed. Then we discussed whether the silence amounts to fraud. Keeping mum, keeping silent, whether it amounts to fraud. The answer is if the silence is equivalent to speech or there is a duty of a person to speak, and if the person remains silent, then that is a fraud. Okay. Then we discussed about misrepresentation. So most of the things in the misrepresentation and fraud are very similar. Only the intention to cheat is not there in the misrepresentation. So fraud means intention to cheat. Fraud means something is done with the intention to cheat. In misrepresentation, there is no intention to cheat the other party. Okay. So thereafter we started regarding mistake. We studied about it. We revised about it. But it was at the fag end of the lecture. So we have to just revise it again. Okay. Now read. You can see the PPT, I hope. Mistake, incorrect or erroneous belief about something. What do you mean by mistake? Incorrect or erroneous belief about something. There are how many types of mistake? Capital A, mistake of law. Capital B, mistake of fact. Mistake of law. One, mistake of Indian law. The mistake of law of the land is no excuse. Ignorantia juris non exsusat. That is the Latin maxim, the meaning of which is mistake of law of land is no excuse. So if suppose in India, while making a contract, the parties make any mistake as to the Indian law, then the contract will not be void, contract will not be voidable, but contract will be perfectly valid. because you cannot ignore the law of the land, that is law of India. Second is mistake of foreign law. It is to be treated as mistake of fact. Now we have not seen up till now what is mistake of fact, no? Okay. Just remember for this moment that it is to be treated as mistake of fact and is excusable. Mutual mistake of foreign law renders the contract void. Okay. Now capital B, mistake of fact. Erroneous belief as to facts. Mistake of fact. Belief erroneous. Wrong belief. Error is there in some in believing. So erroneous belief as to the facts. So the mistake is there with respect to the facts of the contract, facts of the agreement or contract. Bilateral mistake of fact. Bilateral means mistake of both the parties. Bilateral mistake as to subject matter. An agreement is void if there is a bilateral mistake of both the parties as to the subject matter of the contract. The agreement is void. Bilateral mistake as to subject matter can be with regard to existence, quality, quantity, price of the subject matter. So if the parties make a mistake with respect to existence of the subject matter, astitva. Existence is what? Astitva. Quality, quantity, price of subject matter, then there is a mistake with respect to all these things. Therefore, the agreement becomes void. Correct. So you have understood now by now what is mistake of fact. So let us go back to mistake of law. Mistake as to foreign law. It is read the above capital A. In capital A point 2, mistake of foreign law. It is treated as mistake of fact. So mistake of fact, what is the effect? The agreement becomes void. Correct. So if there is a mistake of foreign law, the agreement becomes void. Okay. Now let us go to the next slide. Bilateral mistake as to the possibility of performance. Whether the contract can be performed, possibility of performance. Performance, whether it is possible or not. Both parties believe that the contract is capable of being performed. Both the parties believe that the contract is capable of being performed. However, in fact, it is not so. So actually the contract cannot be performed because of any reason. So if the contract cannot be performed, contract will come to an end. In fact, it is not so. It becomes void. It means what? Contract becomes void. Correct? So in mistake of fact, there are two types. First we discussed, which was mistake of fact, bilateral mistake. Now it is unilateral mistake. Unilateral means one party. Mistake of one party. One party to the contract is under mistake. The contract is not voidable. So if there is a mistake by one party with respect to certain things, the contract is not voidable, but it is perfectly valid. Continue. In following circumstances, the contract becomes void even if there is a unilateral mistake. So mistake of one party is there, but in following circumstances, the contract is void. Mistake as to identity of a person. For example, A wants to contract with B. A has given proposal to B, but that person B is not actually B, but he is C. So there is a mistake of A with respect to identity of a person. Correct? C is representing that as if he is B. C is representing that as if he is B. So A is believing that Mr. C is B. So there is a mistake with respect to identity of a person. Then the mistake is only of one party, that is Mr. A. So the agreement or the contract becomes void. Next, unilateral mistake as to the nature of the contract. While signing the contract, if the party believes that what is written in it is correct, but something else is written there. Try to understand. Contract is for giving on rent. It is decided that the contract will be for giving a particular property on rent. But in the contract itself, it is written that the property is to be sold. So the person who is signing the contract is believing that this is a contract for giving the property on rent. But actually, what is written there? That the property is to be sold. So the nature of the contract differs, no? What a person is thinking is with respect to renting the property. Correct? But it is not so. It is not so. It is for sale, actually. So there is a mistake as to nature of contract. The nature of contract is changing. So therefore, it would be void. Okay. So if you have any difficulties with respect to, sorry, with respect to the consent and free consent, please ask me. Till that time, I will share with you the next presentation. No difficulties or network issue is there. Now you can see the PPT. The next chapter we discussed and we studied about is about the void agreements. So by this time, you must be knowing what do you mean by void agreement. The agreement is not enforceable. Correct? The agreement will not go ahead. The agreement will not become a contract. So the definition of contract talks about agreement enforceable by law. So the agreement, if it is void, it will not be enforceable by law. So void agreements which are unenforceable by law. See what you have written. Void agreements which are unenforceable by law. The following types of agreements have been expressly declared to be void under Indian Contract Act. What we have written? The following types of agreements have been expressly declared to be void under Indian Contract Act 1872. So following agreements which are enumerated here are declared to be void under the Indian Contract Act. Now, so many of the things in this you have already studied. Correct? Let us see which are they and let us see the new ones. Point 1. Agreements by or with persons incompetent to contract. Last chapter of module 1. Correct? Agreements by with or with persons incompetent to contract. Capacity to contract. That was the chapter, last chapter of module 1. So we discussed about that chapter. We revised that chapter also. So a person who is minor, person who is of unsound mind, and a person who is disqualified by law from contracting does not have the capacity to enter into a contract. So we discussed about the minority. What are the ingredients of minus agreement. Minus agreements are void. So agreement by a person who is a minor, agreement by a person who is unsound mind, and agreement by a person who is disqualified by law from contracting are void. So if you remember the definition of capacity to contract, the definition was like this: every person is competent to the contract who is of the age of majority and who is of sound mind and who is not disqualified by law from contracting. So these three things must be with the person together to make him competent to enter into a contract. So to have the capacity to enter into a contract, a person must be a major person and he must be a person of unsound mind. Sorry, he must be a person of sound mind and he must be a person who is not disqualified. So why am I emphasizing on the word and? All the three things together must be with the person. So person who is minor but sound mind will not do. He must be minor as well as he must be of sound mind. Major and unsound mind will not do. Major and sound mind. So all three qualifications must be there with a person at one time. So he must be major, he must be sound mind, and he is not disqualified by law from contracting. So all these three ingredients, all these three aspects must be there with a person to make him competent to contract. In other words, the qualification for a person to become capable to enter into contract is he must be a major person, he must be a person of sound mind, and he must be a person who is not disqualified by law from contracting. Correct? Then second type of agreement, just read: agreements entered into through a mutual mistake of fact between the parties. Few minutes before itself we have studied this, no? Agreements entered into through a mutual mistake of fact between the parties. So if there is a mutual mistake, the agreement becomes void. Agreement made without consideration. This also we studied. Agreement without consideration is void. So there has to be consideration in the agreement. There may be very minimum consideration. There many consideration may be more, consideration may be less, consideration may be equal. But the law requires that the consideration is required in the agreement. Law is not saying anything about its percentage. How much consideration is required? Law is not saying anything about it. The requirement of law is the consideration is required in the agreement. That's all. So if there is no consideration, the agreement becomes void. No consideration, no contract. So if there is no consideration in the agreement, there will be no contract. Next point, agreement, the consideration or object of which is unlawful. This also we studied while discussing the chapter of consideration. Next, agreement, the consideration or object of which is partly unlawful. Partly unlawful, just slight modification of the earlier point. Partly unlawful and partly lawful. So lawful part will be enforceable, unlawful part will not be enforceable. I gave you the example of rotten apple. 80% of the apple is rotten. You cannot separate the 20%. The entire apple you throw away, no? But 20% of the apple is rotten. You cut aside the part which is rotten and you eat the 80% of the apple which is good. So if the part is unlawful and part is lawful, And if both these parts cannot be separated, then the entire agreement becomes void. But if both the parts can be separated from each other, the unlawful part becomes void and the lawful part becomes valid. Do you remember all these things? When we discussed it initially, I had explained these things to you. You must keep it in this in your mind. Correct? No? Next, agreement in restraint of marriage. Agreement in restraint of marriage. Restraint means restriction. This point we discussed in our agreement against public policy. So any agreement which restricts the right of a person to get married is to that extent void. So you cannot put a restriction of on a person by way of an agreement on his right to get married. On completion of 21 years of age for a male and 18 years of age for a female, they get the right to marry a male or female as the case may be of their choice. So this right is given to them by law. So any agreement which is restricting this right to marry is declared as void. Correct? Next, agreement in restraint of trade. What do you mean by trade now? This also we discussed while studying the agreements against public policy. Agreement in restraint of trade. Any agreement which restricts any person to carry on any lawful business, occupation, or profession is to that extent void. So, what do you mean by trade? Any lawful business, occupation, or profession. Any lawful business, occupation, or profession is called as trade. Correct? So any agreement which is coming in the way of carrying on any lawful business, occupation, or profession is to be declared as void. Correct? There are exceptions to this that also we discussed. We'll discuss few of them. With respect to partnership, a person who is a partner in the firm can be restricted from carrying on similar business as that of the firm. Correct, no? He cannot carry on the similar business as that of the firm. Okay. Second example, a person who is retiring from the partnership can be restricted from carrying on the similar business as that of the firm within a particular locality or for a particular period. Correct? These agreements are not agreements in restraint of trade, or in fact they are agreement in restraint of trade, but they are valid. They are not void. For the simple reason, a person who is carrying on or who is doing the business in partnership will be sharing the profits in that partnership business. Suppose if in the next shop he starts the same business as that of partnership, he will snatch the clients of the partnership, no? He will divert the clients of the partnership to his proprietor's business. So in partnership, he is sharing the profit. In his proprietor's business, he is the person who is getting 100% profit. So the firm will be at loss. He will divert the clients of firm who is proprietorship business and will earn the profits. So the other partners of the firm will be at loss. No. So to avoid this, the restriction put on a partner not to carry on the business of the firm or similar business of the business similar to that of the firm in a particular locality, or not to carry on it, not in a particular locality, but to not to carry on it, is a valid agreement. So the restriction can be there, but there are certain things on satisfying those conditions only the restriction is valid. Or like a partner, restriction on a partner to carry on the similar business of that of the firm in the locality, or a straightway restriction that you cannot carry on the business similar to that of the firm when you are a partner. The retiring partner also may do the same business, no, in the adjoining gala, adjoining shop. So he may also snatch the partner, he may also snatch the clients or customers of the firm. So to avoid this, a restriction can be put on him that you cannot carry on the business of the firm for a particular period or in a particular locality. Is this clear? Next, agreement in restraint of legal proceedings. Agreement in restraint. Restraint again means what? Restriction. If there is a legal remedy available to a person, that person can use that legal remedy. Legal remedy is what? To file a case. Legal remedy is to file a case. Legal proceedings are the cases which are filed. So if there are violation of rights of a person, the person has a right to file a case. That is called as legal proceeding. Now, there cannot be any agreement which restricts the right, of a person to file a case, or any agreement which is there which is restricting a right of a person to file a case is to be declared as void. Okay. Next is wagering agreement. Wagering agreement we discussed in detail. Just a minute, let me see whether we have discussed it here. Yeah, wagering agreements we have discussed in this chapter itself at the end. So we will discuss it when we reach there. Impossible agreements. Agreements to do things legal as well as things illegal. 10th is what? Impossible agreements. Some agreements are impossible to perform. So those agreements are void. Next is what? Agreements to do things legal as well as things illegal. So such agreements are also declared to be void. Point number 12. Agreements contingent on an uncertain future event if the event becomes impossible. Now this point is actually the part of the next chapter, that is contingent contract, but we will discuss it here only. Correct? What is written there? Agreements contingent on an uncertain future event. Contingent is what? Dependent. The agreement is dependent on an uncertain future event. So future is always uncertain. So the agreement is contingent on uncertain future event. If the event becomes impossible, the agreement becomes void. So the agreement is conditional on whether the future event is going to happen or not. If the event does not happen, the agreement becomes impossible. Correct? You are following me? We'll discuss this in detail in the next chapter. Last point. Agreements, the meaning of which is uncertain. Meaning is uncertain. Some disturbance at your side. Who is it? Samir Yadav. Samir Yadav, please mute yourself. Point 13, agreement, the meaning of which is uncertain. By reading the agreement, no certainty is there. Nothing can be followed. Such agreement becomes void. Now, see, we have discussed here in detail the agreement in restraint of trade. Restraint means restriction. Restraint means restriction. Agreements putting restriction on right to carry on any lawful trade, business, occupation, and profession is to that extent void. Exceptions under statutory provisions. Sale of goodwill, partners agreement. We discussed about partners agreement. I explained it to you a few minutes before. What agreements are not to be treated as agreements in restraint of trade. Under judicial interpretation, trade combinations, exclusive dealing agreements, or sole dealing agreements, service agreements. Correct? Then next slide, wagering agreements. Wagering means matka, or what you can call it as gambling. Wager is an agreement between two parties by which one promises to pay money or money's worth. Money's worth means what? Which can be converted into money. So which has the value of money on happening of some uncertain event in consideration of the other party's promise to pay if the event does not happen. Short example I'll give you. A tells B that if it rains within next 1 hour, I will pay you 500 rupees. And B promises A, if it does not rain within next 1 hour, I will pay you 500 rupees. So happening or non happening of some uncertain future event, and the amount is to be paid. If it rains within one hour, A will pay B rupees 500. If it does not rain, B will pay A rupees 500. So this is what is gambling. Essentials of wager. Read further. Promise to pay money or money's worth. Promise to pay money or money's worth. Money's worth means what? Anything. Check. Check is what? Money's worth. Is it not? It can be converted into money. Next, uncertain event. Event is uncertain. Whether it will rain or not. Do you know it? No, you don't know. So the event is uncertain. It is a future event. Next, mutual chances of gain or loss. So A will gain 500 or A will lose 500. Mutual chances. So anything can happen. Correct. Gain will be there or loss will be there. So it is applicable to both the parties. For A as well as for B. If it rains within next hour, A will pay B rupees 500. If it does not rain, B will pay rupees 500 to A. Mutual chances of gain or loss. No. Next, neither party to have control over the event. Whether do you have a control on whether it will rain or not? No, you do not have the control. Next, no other interest in the event. Correct? Exceptions. So exactly the wager is what? Gambling. Okay. Exceptions to that. Prize competitions. Why? Because some efforts are required. It is not gambling. Game of skill, like Kaun Banega Crorepati. The knowledge is required for giving the answers. No. Game of skill. Horse race. Then contract of insurance, crosswords, etc. are exceptions to the contract of wager. Okay. Then the important sentence in this chapter, all agreements against public policy are void agreements. So all agreements which are enumerated under the chapter of public policy, those agreements are also to be treated as void agreements. Now, do you have any difficulty with respect to the chapter of void agreements? Please ask me. We will go on break after satisfying your difficulties. If you have no difficulties or you want to ask me later on, no problem. We'll go on break. We'll be back sharp at 8:30. At what time? 8:30. Correct? Get yourself fresh. Come back at 8:30 sharp. Okay? Welcome back to the lecture. Ray, I have asked you to fill the feedback form of the syllabus. Give your suggestions for the same, that project work is required or the syllabus requires revision, something new is required to be added. What you write only is very good, excellent. Don't you understand what I am trying to tell you? What is required there in students' feedback? If you have not filled in, please fill it. I am sending you the link just now. Those who have not filled in the link, please fill the Google form for this purpose. This is a link for Google form. Your feedback is required. Do you understand? Hello, do you understand what I'm trying to tell you? I am sending you the link of Google form. If you have not filled up the Google form with respect to the feedback for the syllabus of 21-22, please fill it up and give your suggestions like so. If you have already filled it in, it's okay, Mayuri. But if you have not, if anybody of you have not filled up, please fill it. You can write your suggestions such as project work is required, viva is required. Few students have filled it on 21/9 or I before this also have told you that your suggestions are required. Your suggestion, it is very good, it is excellent, that is not required. What you feel that viva is required, project work is required in the syllabus, revision of syllabus is necessary, some new acts are required to be included. I am giving you the suggestions, no, which you can give. So who have not filled up the form, please fill it today itself with these suggestions. It's my request to you. How many of you have not filled in the form? Please tell me. How many of you have not filled in the form? Please answer in chat box. So what you are required to do is, or the students who are not attending the lecture, unse le lo. What responses you are writing here? I will read your responses. What is the response written by you? Very good. Good. How do you feel? Any changes are required? You write it that, no? Write it that way. I don't see any response to that effect. चलो फिर let us go on to the syllabus now. Next chapter is contingent contract. Contingent contract. What do you mean by contingent contract? That we have to understand. Just a minute. Okay, some feedbacks are good. Please give the name of the topic for remember to continue. No, sir, we don't want any changes. Some suggestions are good. Provide attendance link first. Okay, you are interested only in attendance. Please add those laws are useful in your day-to-day life. Open the college. सिलेबस के बारे में ये ओपन द कॉलेज ये हो गया क्या? No changes. Provide attendance link. Please add those topics which are necessary. First, method of teaching is very good. I know that. Nice lecture. All perfect revision. Somebody has stated that project work is required. Provide attendance link first. No. I am satisfied. Name of the topic for remembrance. Please add those laws. Open college, give project law topic. Okay, so you have stated something, no? Accordingly, I have to send the report. Now let us start with the new chapter, that is contingent contract. Contingent contract. Section 31 defines contingent contract as a contract to do or not to do something if some event collateral to such contract happens or does not happen. What is stated? A contract to do or not to do something. So contract is for doing something or for not doing something. If some event collateral to such contract happens or does not happen. collateral, connected, supportive event happens or does not happen. Correct. Example, what you have to read, what is the example given? A contracts to pay B rupees 5,000 if B's house is burned. So burning of B's house is not performance of contract. Burning of B's house is an event which is collateral for performance of contract. So once that event happens, then only the amount of rupees 5,000 is to be paid. Correct? Let us read the definition again. A contract to do or not to do something if some event collateral to such contract happens or does not happen. Okay. The event happens or event does not happen. A contract to pay, A contracts to pay B rupees 5,000 if B's house is burned. Correct. This is the example of contingent contract. Essentials. The act must not be at the discretion of the promisor. The event must be collateral. Contract is conditional. So the payment is to be made on a condition, no? So if B's house is not burning, money is not to be paid. Next is valid contract. Every event may be an act of the party, not certain. So these are the essentials of contingent contract. Now let us see then the rules regarding contingent contract. Just give me a moment. Legal rules, your connection is unstable. Again and again, there is some problem with respect to internet, but we can't help it. We have to continue with the same. Correct, no? Sure. Legal rules regarding contingent contracts. 1. Contingent contract depending upon happening of an uncertain event, future event, cannot be enforced until the event has happened. So if the event is happening, then only the contract is to be performed. Rule number 2. Contingent contract depending on non-happening of uncertain future event can be enforced when the happening of the event becomes impossible. So the event is not happening, then the contract is to be performed. So the event is not happened, then the contract can be enforceable. Then point number 3. If the contract is contingent upon how a person will act in an unspecified time, the event shall be considered to be impossible when such person does anything which renders it impossible that he should so act within any definite time or otherwise than under further contingencies. So for this point, you have to keep in mind or you have to remember one example. Point number 3. You can say that contingent contract dependent on future conduct of a living person. Okay. Now I will read the example for you. You may note it down or you may remember, you may keep it in your mind. A promises to pay B rupees 5 lakhs. A promises to pay B rupees 5 lakhs. If B marries C, A promises to pay B rupees 5 lakhs if B marries C. Correct? Now, what happens? There is no marriage between B and C, but C marries D. The moment C marries D, the marriage between B and C will be considered impossible. Correct? So the contract is not to be performed. Okay. Next point. Contingent contract depending upon the happening of an uncertain future event within fixed time. So this is connected directly to point number 1. In this point, the time is fixed. Within this particular time, the thing must happen. Then only the contract is to be performed. Then point number 5, contract contingent contract depending upon non-happening of an uncertain future event within fixed time. So this is in connection with point number 2. This is in connection with point number 2. Contingent contract depending upon non-happening of an uncertain future event within fixed time can be enforced when the uncertain event does not happen within fixed time. So if the event is not happening within fixed time, then only the contract is to be performed. The last point of the chapter is contract contingent upon happening of an impossible event. The event is not going to happen. Event is going to be impossible. So this point we discussed in the last PPT, void agreements. I will just see that agreement contingent upon uncertain future event if the event becomes impossible. The event becomes impossible, the contract becomes void. The same way, a contract contingent upon happening of an impossible event is void. Correct? So here we complete revision of contingent contract. Now let us go on to the next chapter. Give me few minutes. Let me share the presentation. Which is the slide which is before you, quasi contracts. Quasi contracts are implied contracts. Quasi contracts are implied contracts. Implied means not express. You have to understand that this is a contract, correct? Sometimes the relations created by the transaction between the parties, we are using the word transaction. Sometimes the relations created by the transaction between the parties resemble with. Resemble means what? Similar to the relations created between the parties of a regular contract. Such contracts are called as like contracts or quasi contracts. Contracts, in contract there is a relation between the parties. Correct? This much you know by now. So when the contract is entered into, the contractual relationship is developed between the parties. Okay. Now, in some transactions, we are using the word transaction. We are not using the word agreement, or we are not using the word contract. In some transactions, the relations between the parties are such that they are very similar to or they resemble with the relations created between the parties of a regular contract. So there are certain transactions in which the relations between the parties is similar to the relation between the parties of a regular contract. Such contracts are called as like contracts or quasi contracts. Correct? So you have to treat these transactions as contract. Why? You will understand when you will study or when we will revise the kinds of quasi-contracts. Now, kinds of quasi-contracts. Supply of necessaries to incapable person. Person supplying necessaries is entitled to be reimbursed from the property of incapable person. Some necessaries are supplied to incapable person. Necessaries means what? Food, shelter, clothing, or any other necessaries suitable to the life of an incapable person. Incapable person means a person who is a minor, or a person who is of sound mind, or a person who is dependent on such unsound mind person. Correct? So such persons to whom he is legally bound to support, incapable person is legally bound to support. The necessaries are supplied to such persons. Correct? Necessaries are supplied to such person. Just give me a moment. Let me check something. A person who supplies necessaries to such incapable person, or any one person to whom the incompetent person is bound to support, suitable to one's condition in life, is entitled to be reimbursed from the property only of the incompetent person. Necessaries suitable to his condition in life. Now, for you and me, or a person like you and me, very bare minimum things may be suitable for living. But for somebody else, or a person from a rich family, the necessaries may be different, no? The necessaries for us in life may be different from a person who is from a rich family or very rich family. Correct? So the necessaries suitable to his conditions in life, one person supplies such necessaries to him. That person is entitled to be reimbursed. Reimbursed means what? Return of money, return of expenses from the property of such incapable person. From the property of such incapable person. So here all the essentials of valid contract are not present in this transaction. Correct, no? There is no proposal from the incapable person that you supply necessaries to me. But still a person with good faith, in good faith, with the clear and good intention, supplying necessaries to minor or necessaries to incapable person. So in that event, his interest is to be protected. So actually this is not a contract because there is no proposal from the incapable person. But still keeping in mind the intention of the person giving necessaries, good intention to support the minor or support incapable person, the law treats this transaction as a contract, valid contract. But it is like a contract and therefore it is a quasi-contract. Okay. Now, next point, payment by interested person. The interested person can recover the payment from the person who is legally bound by law to pay. This is something new. Interested person. Who is this interested person? I had given you the example that you are my tenant. I am the owner of a property. You are my tenant. Now, I have to pay property tax. I have to pay property tax on the property. year by year. Is it not? So now I am paying the property tax, but for a few years I have not paid it. Government has sent me the notices for payment of property tax, but I have not paid. Ultimately, what the government can do, government can put my property for auction sale. It will sell it by auction, and the money which is received by selling the property will be used for payment of property tax, and the remaining amount will be returned to me after payment of the property tax, if there is any remaining amount. You are my tenant, huh? Please remember that. Now, if the property is sold off, the new buyer, that is the new owner, may continue with you as a tenant, or he may ask you to go away. So you don't want to take that risk. So what do? You don't want to lose the property. You are staying there. So what you will do, in order to save your tenancy, you will make the payment of that property tax to the government. You are following me? In order to save your tenancy, you will make the payment of that property tax to the government. So you are the interested person. A person who is interested in payment of money, which another is bound by law to pay it. Who is bound by law to pay? I am bound by law to pay it. Correct? I am bound by law to pay it. But you are interested in that payment. So you make the payment to the government. You are entitled to recover that money from me. Now here, actually speaking, again there is no proposal given by my side or given from my side that please pay that property tax on my behalf. Have I made you the proposal? Have I made you the request for payment of the property tax? No. You on your own do it. Why? Because you are interested in that property, you are staying there. Is it not? So you are an interested person, you make the payment for the money which another is bound by law to pay. I am bound by law to pay it, no? So you make the payment of the money which I am liable by law to pay. In that event, even though there is no proposal from my side, you can recover that amount from me. There is no proposal. So all the essentials of valid contract are not present in this transaction. But keeping in mind the good intention of yours to save the property and save your interest, the law protects you. And you can recover the amount from me, which is paid by you for my benefit and for your benefit as well. Correct? So even though this proposal part is not there in this transaction, you have to treat this transaction as a regular contract. Okay. Now I will give you now the attendance link for this lecture. You are basically interested in attendance link itself, I see, it seems. Just give me a moment. $23.9. Just give me a moment. Whether you have received the link, please tell me. Okay. So let us go back to syllabus. Point number 2 we have covered. Now point number 3. Payment for non-gratuitous act. The person enjoying the benefit has to make the payment. Payment for non-gratuitous act. You do some act which is non-gratuitous. There are two types of acts. Gratuitous act and non-gratuitous act. Gratuitous act is act which is done without expecting any money. Correct. And non-gratuitous act is done which is not a gratuitous act. So here some money non-gratuitous. So which is gratuitous act is gift. If you give a gift to somebody, your act is a gratuitous act. Correct. So you are not expecting anything in return from that act. But non-gratuitous act means the thing is not given as a gift. Correct. Now this is rainy season. You go to the friend's house. You carry the umbrella. It's raining heavily. Correct. So you go to your friend's house, you stay there, wait there, you have a chat, you have a some eating and enjoyments, and thereafter you decide to leave. At that time, the rain has stopped. There are no rains. So the umbrella which you have taken with you, you forget the umbrella at his place. It is a normal habit of a human being. When there are no rains and when a person carries with the umbrella with him, and after the stopping of the rain and returning from that place, he normally forgets the umbrella at that place only. So you have forgotten your umbrella, you have failed to collect the umbrella from your friend place, and you come home. Now this act, have you given the umbrella as gift to your friend? No. Then what it is? Have you given the umbrella as a gift to your friend? No. Then what it is? So your act is non-gratuitous. So it is for your friend to return the umbrella. Now if suppose your friend sells the umbrella, then he will have to make the payment of the money which he has received from that sale. That is called as payment for non-gratuitous act. Next point is finder of goods. Finder of goods. Very simple to understand, no? Finder of goods. The finder of goods is entitled to ask for expenses incurred by him and reward if any. So finder of goods, a person who finds goods belonging to another, is called as finder of goods. The finder of goods is entitled to ask for expenses incurred by him and reward if any. Duties and liabilities. The finder must take care of the goods. Finder must not use the goods for his own purpose. Finder must not mix the goods found with his own goods. Finder must attempt to find true owner and return the goods to him. It is the duty of the finder of the goods to return the goods to the true owner, real owner. Correct? Rights of the finder. He acquires the rights of bailee. he acquires the rights of bailee. Bailee, bailer and bailee, bailment. You have studied bailment and pledge chapter. So you must know about who is bailee. Now, rights of bailee. He acquires the rights of finder of goods. He acquires the rights of bailee, right of lien. So, see, try to understand. If you find the goods belonging to another, if you find the goods belonging to another, and you have spent certain amount for preserving the goods or finding the real owner, in that event, you have to ask the owner once he is found to refund you the amount which you have spent for preservation of the goods and for finding the real owner. Correct? Correct, no? So if it does not pay you that amount, you can tell him that unless you make the payment of that amount, I will not return the goods to you. Correct? Next right. Right against the owner for expenses incurred by him for preserving the goods and finding the true owner. That's what I told you just now, no? Correct? So unless that amount is paid, the finder can hold the goods with him. Next, finder may sell the goods if goods are of perishable nature. Goods are of perishable nature. Perishable means what? Nashivanta goods. So goods are of perishable nature. So finder may sell the goods if the goods are of perishable nature, or if the owner refuses to pay the lawful charges, or if the owner cannot be found after reasonable search. Correct. Now, last point for today: payment of money or delivery of goods by mistake or coercion. The receiver of money or goods must repay or redeliver it. Payment of money or delivery of goods by mistake or coercion. I will give you one example. Mr. X and Y are tenants of Mr. A. I have given this example to you earlier. Mr. X and Y are tenants of Mr. A, and they are sharing the same room. The rent of the room is total rupees 1000. A will contribute 500 and B will contribute 500. Correct? So on the first day of a month, the rent is to be paid. So X is going for office on first day of the month. He pays rupees 1000, 500 of his and 500 of Mr. Y's. Correct? So total rent of rupees 1000 is paid by X to Mr. A. After half an hour, Mr. Y is going for office. Unknowing of the fact that Mr. X has paid the entire rent, he again pays rupees 1000 to Mr. A as the rent of Mr. Y and Mr. X. Correct? Now the thing is, 1000 rupees are received extra by Mr. A by mistake. Is it not? So it is his duty to return that amount to Mr. Y. Do you understand? So these are the types of quasi contracts. Now, if you have any difficulties, please ask me. I will stop share here. I will send the attendance link again. If anybody has not marked the attendance, please mark the attendance. No difficulties. If there are no difficulties, we will not continue with new chapter today. We will continue with the new chapter in the next lecture. Correct, no? So there is no point in starting with the new chapter just now. Only 5 minutes are remaining. So we will wind up the lecture today at 9:15. So we will your regular next lecture will be at 10 o'clock. Correct. Other lectures are not preponed. My lecture is preponed. So you have to start your lecture at 10 o'clock now. Third lecture. So have a good day and all the best. I'm ending the meeting. Okay. Chalo, bye bye.